This is a quick intro to a couple things. First of all, the REST API, which has been a feature of the Eclipse controller from Distech for a really long time, at least 6 years. I think more than 6 years, but that's as long as I've been working with this. So, but perhaps even longer than that. If you want to get documentation on how to use the REST API, which all Eclipse controllers serve, um, and consume it as a REST API client, so you can get information directly from each controller. This is all you'd have to do. Is go to that developer portal, select the RESTful API, and voila. So here you can choose which call you like to make and see what an example call might look like. URL parameters, headers, and that sort of thing, and what an expected response will look like. Um, so this is where you'd get that information. The next thing I like to also quickly introduce is Postman, which is tool to send client HTTPS requests to servers that are serving APIs over REST protocol. This is an amazing tool. Really like it. I've been using it for quite some time, and it's really great. Um, you can create collections of calls, like I've done here. You can craft your HTTPS request, select the HTTPS method, um, and type the URL. Any query parameters you may need, you can also share, have right here. Um, you can have environments where you can host variables and then use them, inject them in your URL or headers or parameters throughout your requests. It's really useful for like authentication and things like that. So, without any further ado, I think I will show how. Here we've got an Eclipse on the local area network. Is looking at this DNS server also on the local area network. This is the IP address of the Eclipse controller. And the reason why we're able to access this browser interface using the domain name is because we have an active DNS server serving address records on this local area network. So we're able to call out the API by name and not by IP address. So there's a um, before we make any calls, we've got to make sure that we have a token. So we've got to authenticate into the controller. So this call probably won't go anywhere because we have not authenticated yet. Authentication, I know there's a better way in Postman. Postman has awesome tutorials to use it as a for building your client for accessing APIs. So there's definitely documentation on how to set up basic authentication. I have a workaround that I've used for quite some time, and so I haven't learned a newer and better way. So I'm just going to show you the workaround, which is also fun to see. So there's also something called the interceptor, by the way. It's a browser, Chrome. It's a Chrome extension. I don't use it for this. I don't really use it, but it's really useful. It's just that I know this other way from a long time ago. So that's what I'll demo out today. So we logged out so we can re-log in. What we're trying to do is once we log in, we're going to get a cookie generated, um, a session cookie is what it's called. So if we right click anywhere on the browser and select inspect, that should open up a developer window. So the next thing here, what we want to do is go to a place called application, which is where all the session specific variables for this browser session are being stored. And here you can see that under cookies, there's a domain name for this page. And there's a cookie with a name of Eclipse REST session ID and the ID. So once we log in, that will change. And this is the new session cookie that's been granted to the browser for authentication. So now I just grab this, copy it, come back to Postman, open up the cookies for this request. I think I'm gonna go with, instead of time, I'm gonna open up perhaps a better one. Start with device ping. And so what we'll do is we'll come here to cookies and we will remove this one, add a new one. So when they're brand new, this is what they look like. Oh, you got to make sure you're in the right domain. So this domain is just that random IP address. I don't want that anymore. Mm, I'm going to add a domain. If you don't have an active DNS server, this would instead of ECY and so on, this would be an IP address, HTTPS 192 or 10 that, whatever. Got this going on, then this is what we're gonna call our domain, and then under this domain we'll add the cookie. So first of all, cookie name has to be changed, and then the value has to be changed next. And here we go, and save. So now we've got this cookie. We basically hijack the authentication token that the browser is using when we logged in through the browser, and we are using it for Postman instead. So the Postman can act as the browser in this instance. So and I will go ahead and make that request. Oh, something happened. Interesting. Unauthorized. So I'm not sure why. Make sure that's what I've got here. Oh, weird. It did not want to copy for some odd reason. At a 120 here. Oh, Lord. Okay. There we go. That looks like the right one. I think this is going to work now. Well, hopefully, but at least I like to see errors too, so that when something doesn't work out, you can see what it's going on and helps be better at troubleshooting these issues later down the road. So here's the response for this request, information about the device. Now, something I like to do, especially when I've got this bit of information is not terrible, but when I've got a ton of XML or um, JSON, this is the neat little tools to view it as a um, as a tree in a more readable format. So let's go ahead and see a couple other ones. Um, Under files, should be something called system. Okay, well, um, let's just run a couple of the queries I've got saved here so that we can look at, for example, this one's a really interesting, I really interesting call. I really like this one. It's to pull the logs. So when so this is a URL query. When we're pulling when we're pulling files, particularly, uh, there are instances where we're going to be pulling folders or directories, not files. And in that instance, the response always comes back formatted as JSON. Um, in the case that we've got a file and we do not have the query for encoding as text, it comes back as JSON, but it gives us metadata about the file, not the file content itself. So if you want the file content, you can either type it right here, or you can also type them down here. Now, once we do that and resend, now we get the actual contents of the file. So that's important. You do not have to specify the encoding when you're retrieving just about anything else that I can tell except for actual files, and when you want to get the content of the file and not the like size or metadata about it. And that stops the, I think this is where I'm gonna cut it today. Let's take a look at one last one. So eventually you'll get to some files that describe BACnet values. Here's one such file. Uh, this is once you've gone down the hierarchy of folders for the different types of objects, and you've gotten to the one for the binary values. So if I grab this and copy and come out to this um, XML viewer here, and I say tree view, and it gives me the tree, gives me information about the point. So, and that's all. Thank you for watching.